Welcome to the Customizing Check-in Flows tutorial video. Entry questions and terms are a critical part of the visitor check-in process. It determines whether a visitor is granted or denied access to a site and can be used to capture information about planned activities, who the visitor is there to see, and other valuable data that provides a complete picture for reporting and site planning needs. Check-in flows let you collect and present different information for different types of users. For example, you collect an employee's ID, but for a visitor, you would instead collect their address and company name and require the visitor to agree to an attached liability waiver document and watch a training video. You can also present delivery instructions on delivery person badges. You can also use visitor types to capture vaccination status that includes different checkbox terms and badge information. This video shows examples of how to do this using the admin app, where you select the Customize option to get started. The app comes with a default visitor flow that cannot be modified, with associated contact info, entry questions, and terms that are enabled for all sites. If you want to customize your own flow, use the Add button. You can modify the flow as needed. For example, the default visitor flow requires the visitor to enter their address. We can quickly toggle this off. The app can also be set up to gather information such as planned activities and destinations within the site. We'll enable the activities question by toggling this on. Responses to entry questions determine whether a visitor is granted or denied access to a site. Select the Add a Question button to add a new entry question. When the visitor selects the expected response, they are granted access to the site. You can enter your question text in both English and Spanish, then select the Save button to add to the library of available entry questions. Use the Toggle button to disable any entry question from the current workflow. Entry terms require the visitor to agree to certain behaviors or view or acknowledge that they have read policy documents or videos. Here we'll add a term that requires the visitor to view a PDF document upon using the app for the first time. When the person visits the site again, or any other of your sites, the term will be checked off, so they do not need to open the document for each check-in. You can also add a link to any web page. This is typically used to point to a training video that you may require your visitor to watch before entering any of your sites for the first time. When you save the term, you see the PDF icon and also see that it is unchecked by default. You can change the order of information presented by dragging it to a new location. I enable my custom question and disable the standard library one. Once you have customized the check-in flow, you should test it by checking into a site. Here we see the 4 pieces of required contact information and the additional info page where I enter my planned activities. Next, the visitor answers entry questions, including a custom question that requires a yes response to be granted access to the site. And then finally, the entry terms page, which has a custom term with a PDF policy document that must be opened before the visitor can check the box. Now let's take a look at how to add multiple check-in flows. We'll add questions and terms that apply to employees. You should enter a description to make it easy to manage multiple flows that you create. I disable the address field as well as the company field, and in its place, I enable the ID number field, which requires the employee to enter their ID number. The employee won't need to provide additional information, but we do want to enable the custom entry question that we added already to the library. We'll then go back to the visitor check-in flows list and enable the employee flow for all sites. Then test the check-in to ensure it works as expected. You then see that the person must identify whether they are a visitor or an employee. When I select employee, I then see that I must enter an employee ID number. The entry questions then appear as expected. Then finally I see that as an employee, I do not need to see the PDF policy document. I'm next going to show you how to create a visitor check-in flow that is site-specific. In this case, I create a delivery person flow. I then make a change to the required contact info. I then want to customize the entry granted badge. I select the copy option to create a custom badge. You should enter an appropriate name and description to make it easy to keep track of different badges. Uncheck the Use Defaults button to customize the badge. We'll edit the badge to show delivery instructions and enable the heading. You can also display the visitor type on the badge by enabling the Checked In As option. You can see how this could be handy for other visitor flows. For example, to show vaccination status. You can also display other information that the person entered during the check-in process. I'll go ahead and toggle a bunch of these on for the badge, and then reorder how they appear on the badge. I then save my changes for the new badge. I then enable this badge for the delivery person flow. The delivery person flow won't be needed across all sites, so I'll leave it disabled. I need to enable the delivery person flow for just one of my sites, so I'll edit that one. I use the Site's Customize tab to select my entry flows. I select all 3 flows, then use the Save button. I then do a test check-in to the site to ensure everything works as expected. I then select the delivery person workflow and answer all the contact information and questions. You then see that the badge displays the special delivery person instructions, the delivery person visitor type, and other information that the visitor provided. The real-time event viewer also displays this detailed contact information. The Customize page shows check-in flows that are assigned to specific sites. I select the site icon on the delivery person flow to see and manage what sites use that flow. There's one last customization option that I'd like to show. That's customizing the company list that the visitor types in when they check in. When I edit company contact info, I can set it up to either have the visitor type in their company name or pick from a list. You can also let the visitor type in a name if their company is not in a list. You can also enable whether the visitor can see a full list of companies to choose from or if they can only search for their company. You then enter the list of companies. The list can be cut and pasted from another app to save time. I save my changes and then test another check-in from a site. You then see as I type in my company name that if the app finds a match for me, or if there's no match, say for New York Pizza Delivery, the app lets me add my company name. This concludes our tutorial video. If you have any questions or issues with your site or setup, please email the SafeSite Check-in product team at support@safesitecheckin.com.